Hi, I'm Chris Joyce. This is Peggy Rose to my left. We're both on the Harwich Voter Information Committee, and our charge is to provide voters here in Harwich on information on local elections, ballot questions, warrant articles, and that's what we're going to do today on Cape Cod Regional Technical High School project. We first heard of the project, I think it was April 2016, when Bob Sanborn, to my right, superintendent of the tech, spoke to us at the Financial State of Harwich. And in that spirit of providing information to the community and our voters, we're pleased to host Superintendent Sanborn to discuss the project and give us some info on the election that's coming up, the ballot questions on October 24th. May I turn it over to you?
Sure.
Yep.
Sure. Bob, as Chris said, and thank you so much, Peggy and Chris, for this opportunity. Just to give a little history, if you'd like.
I'd love that.
We started this process way back in 2011, and we submitted statements of interest to the Mass School Building Authority, which we're all about acronyms in education, so that's the MSBA. And for 4 successive attempts, we failed at getting into the program because we were noticing that our operating budget was no longer able to keep up with the extreme capital needs that the facility would be needing in the near future. So we invited our legislative delegation before we submitted our 5th statement of interest. And not to say the MSBA is responsive to politics, but soon after that they toured our facility. And it was that tour that really gave them the look. Because if you walk into our facility at 351 Pleasant Lake Avenue, you're going to see a place that's been well kept. You're going to see that I think we've been stewards of the taxpayers' money over these 45 years we've been in existence. With land provided by Harwich's own, Jimmy Marceline.
That's right.
Some of your viewers may be aware of that. They looked at our facility and they started to get the perspective of the issues we were facing. Because once you get past our bright hallways and well-kept floors and walls in the main entryway, you get into the guts of our building, and a building that was designed with an open floor plan on our 1st and 3rd floors, which walls have been put up over the years to that floor plan to make it more good for education. And that has led to classrooms that are far below the DESE requirements. So the other thing that in getting into the program in 2015, January of 2015, so it was a very quick, we submitted in 14. Right after that legislative, they toured our facility, and lo and behold, in January of 2015, we were in the MSBA program. Right. And it's been a whirlwind ever since that time period. We put together a 25-member school building committee, which I think is highly representative of the district. Our district is from Mashpee to Provincetown, including Harwich. We agreed upon an enrollment of 650 students for the new or renovated facility. And that's something the viewers need to know, that a renovation or new was part of the core program. Our school building committee looked at 6, really when it was all boiled down, and all of this information, by the way, is on our website, www.capetech.us, where we have every module of us proceeding through the steps that the MSBA provides.
I'll just mention that it was very helpful to review that.
Oh, good. Yeah. That's good to hear, because our committee, one thing we did at the outset is we wanted to be transparent. We wanted all the numbers out there, good or bad. And as you remember in the beginning, the numbers were high. And
they were a little higher.
And they're still high, but this is a once in 45-year ask. You know, we've never asked for additional capital funds over these last 45 years. And we've done some major projects within our operating budget and some private donations over those 45 years. So our school building committee looked at 6 options. They looked at 3 renovations, and they looked at 3 new options. And what became apparent after during feasibility study, they call it, is that renovation and new were going to be virtually the same price. They looked at a renovation of the existing square footage. They looked at a renovation that had an addition off the front, which would provide some swing space for the students. But once you started to get into reno addition options, they were the same price as new construction. And renovating a vocational technical high school, it's a challenge when it's a traditional high school. When it's a vocational technical high school, a particular challenge is you can't have temporary auto shops.
Oh.
So that was a big difficulty. So swing space was key in a renovation. But then renovation with a swing space was the same price as new construction.
I'm not sure I know what swing space means.
Okay, so you have your existing facility.
Right.
You build an addition. So now the students can swing into that space.
Okay.
It's a construction term I wouldn't have known 2
Love
years
it.
ago either.
Love it.
But that's kind of key to having it not completely disrupted
Got
to
it.
the educational process. Another thing with renovation was that it was highly disruptive to the educational process, no matter whether you had the addition and swing space or not. It was estimated to be twice as long for construction.
Oh.
And as I said, in the end, it was approximately the same price. So then they looked at 3 new construction options, which were on our east side, our north side, which is off of Long Pond Drive, which is a residential neighborhood over there. So that was eliminated, the north side of our building. It's also low-lying. Around the west side, we didn't even really consider that. It was sitting on our septic system, so we didn't think that was a good option. There was one that was on our football field to the south, closest to Route 6. What was decided unanimously by the school building committee, and it was such an, even though it's a very expensive project, and I understand that, it was a unanimous decision and a very easy decision to choose what we're calling C2, which is to the east side. So if you come to our facility, you usually drive around the right-hand side. By the way, you drive around the right-hand side because our front entrance is not handicapped accessible, and it's also that for safety, security reasons. But you come around that east side, that is where the new facility is proposed to be. And that is now at a price that falls within the feasibility estimates of $127 million. In the reno-only option, the price was between 123 and 125 million. So now that we've gone from C2, where they chose C2 in November of 2016, the committee, and then they dug deeper into that in what they call schematic design. And at the time it was estimated at 141 million. It's now down to 128, just under 128 million. So how does that break down? Because that's a big question. And we have a reimbursement rate with the Mass School Building Authority published at 45%. However, many things are not covered by the MSBA, which you may have learned in the Monomoy project. Site costs are capped at 8% of construction, and construction costs, we are in a highly inflationary construction cost market. This project is estimated to be $471 per square foot construction cost, and the MSBA only reimburses $326. If this building was built 4 to 5 years ago, that $300, that $326 would be more than adequate. But there's been a very high inflation in the building market. If you go up to Boston, you see the cranes. It's those companies that are going to be the companies that can do this type of work. So that delta between 471 and 326 is falling on the district and in the towns. So the effective reimbursement rate on this project, I should mention that furniture, fixtures, and equipment is also an area where we are exceeding the limits of the MSBA because they only allot $2,400 per student for furniture, fixtures, and equipment. We have 15 technical programs going through, and that is nowhere near enough money. So that's another source of ineligible costs.
And mostly because it's a tech school.
And in that case, it's because it's a tech school and equipping those 15
Yeah.
programs. One question some people have asked is, what about the stuff that's in the current facility if we're approved? We will move newer equipment over. It'll be a case-by-case basis as we analyze things. If the voters do approve us on October 24th from 12 to 8.
12 to 8, October 24th.
Okay, and a little bit about that, if I could.
Yes.
You can't tell that I've given this speech more than once, right?
No.
So, per our regional agreement, back in the 70s, which is an agreement at that time of 11 towns, and then Mashpee joined us very soon after, we have to borrow in this manner. It's according to Chapter 71, 16, little n, and that little n means that we have to have a district-wide vote. It's how our building was built. It was how the debt for the original building was allowed. So it's a district-wide vote on the same day with the same polling hours. And that's what's happening on October 24th from 12 to 8. And your viewers should know the town clerks of the 12 towns have been essential to in our progression to October 24th. We met 3 times, the most recent on September 7th, but over those 3 times, the first meeting we agreed on October 24th. In the law that I referenced, the polling hours can only be no less than 4 hours, no more than 8 hours. So for the voters out there, we would have longer voting hours if it was allowable.
Right.
Chapter 71, 16N only allows for 8 hours, no more than 8 hours. So we decided upon 12 to 8 as those hours. So it's very unique to this election.
I might mention, I spoke with Paula West in the town clerk's office Friday, and I asked if there were early voting, if there was early voting. I got that wrong. And she said it started yesterday, October 2nd.
Yep.
So for those of you who aren't going to be here on the 24th, you may slip into town hall and, town hall and vote. Yep.
Yes, one thing in the meeting we learned is that I think all absentee ballots throughout the district are now available, especially in Harwich, as you just said. And then one date that is really pivotal, if you're not registered to vote, you need to do that by October 4th, which is tomorrow.
Tomorrow, right.
And you can do that by, I think, up until 8 o'clock, but you want to check with the town clerk's office to be specific on that time. And then absentee ballots are available, and they're available through the 23rd at noon, but they can be submitted right up until the end of the vote on October 24th from 12 to 8.
And Barnstable has already done this, so, right?
Thank
Correct?
you, Peggy. What Barnstable did, they didn't have the vote for the school. They decided to have a debt exclusion vote on September 19th. And that fast-forwarded the process of information for us. As I think you said to me when we met outside, do you feel like you're on a book tour? I said, yes, I do, without the royalties. The September 19th vote really fast-forwarded our information campaign, and we had to concentrate on Barnstable so that the voters in Barnstable had the information. It was a low turnout in Barnstable. 7.4% of the voters turned out. However, we won 2-1, 66 to 33. But that vote was not saying yes to allowing us debt. What that was saying is, if we get the project on October 24th, that debt will be excluded from the tax base, so it would not affect town services. I believe Harwich is having a similar vote on the same day as our vote. So for the voters, there are 2 votes that day, I believe. One of them is ours, which is to allow us to take on the debt. And I don't want to speak for the town, but I believe the other is for a debt exclusion if our project passes in the town of Harwich, which would allow us to assume the debt if we go forward, and then if the debt exclusion vote goes through, it would not affect Harwich Town Services. Because we do know, we do not want to have an effect on town services if it's at all possible, even though it's not our vote, because this is a once in 45-year ask to provide vocational technical education for another 40 to 50 years in Harwich and in the 12 towns. Because one thing that gets lost in this education environment we're on in Cape Cod is that we are your vocational technical high school. Harwich and from Provincetown to Mashpee. There is an economies of scale of having a regional vocational technical high school. This now does not have to be duplicated in all 12 towns. That was the vision of the people who formed this school back in the early 70s, and it's what we are attempting to secure for the next 40 to 50 years. If I could go back to the numbers.
Yes, I was just looking at my notes.
Yes. I think I started, I talked about the reimbursement rate being an effective rate of about 33%. What that means to the towns is an estimated $86 million. And then on our website, we have the breakdown of the tax impact for all 12 towns. And we also have some informational packets in all 12 towns in the town halls, which speak to the breakdown for your individual town in the town of Harwich. So that 86 million is an estimate, and the tax impact that we estimate for the 12 towns is based on borrowing at 5% for 30 years. Both of those are moving targets, meaning if we do get a vote on October 24th, 12 to 8, and it's approved that we can take on the debt, we will meet with our 12 towns and our financial advisors to find the most advantageous way to borrow. We are hopeful that the interest rate will not be 5%.
Right.
The numbers that we've been providing all along in this process, we've attempted to keep them conservative so that it is the worst case scenario, and that's the case as it stands today.
And then how, to a homeowner in Harwich, how does this impact us going forward?
I do not have that in front of me.
Yep.
But as I said, on our website and
Yeah.
in the informational packet in town, I just don't recall off the top of my head.
There are a few towns, aren't
There
there,
are, there's
involved?
12.
Right, yeah.
You give me a second, I look it up on my cell phone. But
And my understanding, it's a majority vote amongst these towns, correct?
very, very good point. Chapter 7116N again is about a majority vote of the district,
Right.
not any one town.
So one town can't bring it down.
That's correct. And, basically, if one more person in the district, in the 12 towns, votes for it than votes against it, we will be authorized to take on the debt to do this project.
Great.
Okay.
Any concluding remarks before I conclude?
I do ask you that there's a couple informational sessions coming up in Eastham and Wellfleet, and consult our website for those dates. We also, I know we have one on October 11th at our school, which would probably be the most advantageous. We've had 7 in total by the end of this process, and our architects will be there, our owner's project manager will be there. There'll be informational packets about the tax impact that we discussed, and I think it would be a great opportunity for the community to come over and see the existing facility, and you really need to tour it to get a sense of why why new has been chosen over renovation.
Yeah, I think the deception for some of our voters is that it looks so great. And they don't know walls are coming apart from the brick, or whatever the right term is
If
for
I have
that.
a moment to speak to that, because
Yeah.
that's key. People do ask, why is renovation the same? We did 6 test holes on the facade of our building, what they call the building envelope. And the brick has been drinking water for many years. So there was a lot of evidence that the water has been getting behind the brick. And what's behind the brick is asbestos-containing material. So that if we did a renovation, if you drive up to our building, it is wrapped in brick. All of it would need to go, including the material behind it. And it's a hazardous material that's behind it, which would have to be abated and contained during a renovation, which drove up the cost significantly of renovation.
Thank you for that.
You mentioned you have 15 shops at the school. Can you tell us what some of them are? Of course, automotive jumps
all
out
know.
immediately, and
Yes.
the Cove.
Well, we're hoping to group the programs with similarities in this new design. So the transportation area would be auto collision, auto technology, and marine service technology. If you go into auto body, auto tech shops, or boat yards, you're going to see our graduates in those, and that's the transportation area. Obviously construction, and I cannot state more vociferously that the construction trades, in particular your electricians, your carpenters, your plumbers, there is a desperate need for new and replacement workers. The Northeastern University did a study for MSBA and found that 1.2 million jobs will be available in the Commonwealth in the programs that we train students for. And in particular, because we're such a heavy service industry on the Cape, and has anybody tried to find a plumber today or an electrician, it's going to get more difficult if there's not the job training that's needed to provide the next generation of construction workers. But we also have HVAC, horticulture, as I said, carpentry, plumbing, and electrical in that area. We have hospitality, which we also know is a big area on the Cape. That's our cosmetology program and our culinary arts program. We're going to have a science, technology, engineering, and arts and mathematics area, which is our engineering technology program. Information technology, design and visual communications are going to be in that area along with art. And the final area is our life sciences area, which would contain, and obviously we know healthcare is a big industry on the Cape. It's health technology and dental assisting. All with academic and technical programming more integrated than they are in the current facility, where they are vastly separated.
I imagine, you know, in 45 years, regular, I shouldn't say regular, but comprehensive high schools, you know, have changed. I can only imagine what it must, the technology has changed, you know, your business, so to speak.
Definitely, and that furniture, fixtures, and equipment number that we talked about earlier, that's where technology, you know, is going to come in.
Yeah.
You know, the auto tech shop of today and of yesterday and today are much different, and technology is a big part. Now, we've made tremendous investments in technology over the years, and some of that will transfer over to the new facility. For example, we've made a large investment in Chromebooks over the years. We almost have one for every student now, and for every area. Excuse me. So, but that it's true. Technology and the equipment needed to provide a 21st century vocational technical education is key. I did have a chance to look up the tax impact while we were talking, and in Harwich, it's 14 cents per thousand, and on the average assessed value, it's around $66 per year for the term of the loan that is decided.
Which we hope is at a low rate.
Which we hope is a low rate, and that 66 would go down accordingly if we find more advantageous financing.
That's great.
I must admit, I'm always impressed at your graduations when you have one of your alumni speak.
Yeah.
You know, how they have progressed in their careers and the careers that they eventually ended up in. It's quite a credit to the school.
Thank you. And you know, it's funny. We had our 40th anniversary a few years ago, and I did a tribute to we have almost 13 staff members who are former graduates, which also I think speaks well of what the education they received at our school.
It's wonderful.
Yeah.
So I'm going to wrap it up, and just with a few bits of information, but a thank you first. Thank you very much.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Yep, wonderful. We planned this a number of months ago, didn't we?
Yes, August 23rd was the email.
That's right. Yeah, right. So I'll just remind our listeners and watchers out there that there's more information on this project at capetech.us. And also, there's a nice short video on the town website under the town administrator, 12 minutes describing the project also. And on voting, we'll remind you that the 4th of October, that's your last day to register so that you're eligible to vote on the 24th. And early voting has started already, so you can go to town hall, early voting, absentee voting. I'll remind you also that on the 24th of October, the polls open at noon and close at 8 p.m. So thank you very much.